Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining in the Zoom conference about art and activism. It's definitely a different way for everybody to begin their school year, and I welcome you back to Algonquin College, or the start of your wonderful education at an amazing college that I'm super proud of to be a graduate of. Um, I started my education actually at Ottawa University in the Fine Arts program. And after a couple of years, I realized that I really wanted the technical training. So I made the move to Algonquin College. And it's definitely a choice that I'm super proud of, and obviously very happy that I made, especially at the time. So I have been a photographer for a very, very long time. It's hard to believe to say over 30 years. And I've been very lucky to do what I love every single day. And, that's a true testament to, following your dreams, I guess. And it's so important that we do what we love, and that you're happy doing what you are doing. So I wish you all the best of luck in your years to come at Algonquin. And anyway, thank you for joining. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I have been able to do with my career post graduation, and actually during. I started my business while I was in university and college, and it was something that I was able to build while continuing my education. And then when I was graduating, I was able to just jump right into the business, and it has not been an easy road by any means, and especially another bump this year. It's being an entrepreneur is always challenging and wonderful in many ways, but it certainly has its ups and downs, and those curves in the road that take you into different directions. It's something that I would never uh, wish that I didn't do by any means. I've been self-employed my entire life, and it's fantastic. One of the things I've always tried to do with my work is to give back, and I think that's what we're talking about today, is art and activism, and being able to share your work and make a difference in the world. So I'm just going to share my screen right now and start my presentation. Um, Hopefully all will go well. I think I've got it. Do I have it? Awesome. It's such a different world. And it's so different talking to a screen and not having that communication with all of you. But it was super fun to see all the faces showing up at the beginning while we were waiting for everybody to join. So anyway, it's a different world. So art and activism. I did everything I could in photography to make a living. That included doing weddings and portraits, architecture, anything and everything that I could do to make a living at photography. I didn't say no to. There were a lot of things that I never even knew how to do. I wasn't really versed in product, or I had taken the courses obviously, but I had never actually worked. And I remember the Ottawa Senators, when they first started, I did their product catalog, and they called me and asked me if that was something I could do. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I'm freaking out in the back of my head thinking, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to figure it out along the way. And a lot of that comes with being an entrepreneur. And while I was working and doing all these jobs, that I didn't necessarily graduate thinking I wanted to be a wedding photographer, but I knew that it was an opportunity to get out into the community and to meet different people, to get my name out there, and to really learn. I had to think fast. I had to manage the day. I had to manage the people. I had to really act quickly and make sure that I performed and created these wonderful, lasting memories for these couples. So it was a great way to actually learn and get myself out in the community. And once I got established, I really wanted to do more with my work, and that's my first book that I'm showing right here, called Look Beyond the Faces and Stories of People with HIV and AIDS. And when I was working, I always felt a need or a want or a desire to give back. I knew I had a gift. We all have a gift to give, and there were so many organizations and so many causes that need that support. And I had a friend who died of AIDS, and I wanted to show that AIDS affects us all. And this takes us back to 1993 when things were very, very different. And I ended up self-publishing through tons and tons and tons of ups and downs and curves. Oh my goodness, it's amazing that I even was able to do this book and to publish it. I was told no by so many different publishers, and the more I was told the more I was told no, the more that I wanted to do it and I wanted to succeed. And I really felt that this was a story that needed to be told through the eyes of the people that are living with this dreadful disease. So I accomplished. It took 3 years, but I self-published my first book in 1996. Afterwards, after I published that, I remember my dad coming into my ear saying, "You should do another book." And he saw what I went through in designing and photographing. I did everything from concept to final product. And I think he didn't want me to kind of fall into, he didn't want me to fall. He wanted me to ride the wave, if you want to say. And so he suggested I do another book, and I thought he was out of his mind when he said that. And then I gave it a little bit of time, and I went, "You're right, I need to do another book." And this time, a really positive book about all the women that have inspired me, and not necessarily, personally, but, from a distance. And I wanted to show the incredible women that Canada has, from entertainers, politicians, survivors, grandmothers, and young girls like my nieces here in this photo. So I did my second book, and I produced that in 2000. And then after that, I decided to take a little bit of a break because I had a child, and I thought I just wasn't ready to produce another book because Dare to Dream was also self-published. And after a little bit of time, I felt the compelling need to go out and photograph the world, or Canada, I guess. I wanted to focus on the landscape and the beauty of what we have in Canada and what we have to lose if we don't take a better care of it, I guess. And I wanted it to have a soft environmental message to it. And as I was traveling, I knew I wanted to go to the Arctic. I knew I wanted to photograph polar bears. And I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. But I made a phone call one day, and the gentleman on the other end of the phone answered. He was up in Pond Inlet, and at the top of Baffin Island on the northeastern side. And he said, "You have to come to Pond Inlet and go to the flow edge." And 2 weeks later, I was working for Nunavut Tourism, and I was working for Adventure Canada and writing for a magazine. So it was one of those things that and I felt I have been from the very beginning putting myself out there, and this is all without social media. That's the big difference. This is word of mouth. This is really connecting with people through the world of what it is, where it was that I wanted to go to. So David suggested I go to Pond Inlet, and it was a life changer. I stood on the flow edge, where the ice ends and the open water begins, and I knew that I wanted to tell the story of the Arctic, and it became such a passion of mine. I just felt like Canada, or the Canadians, a lot of Canadians didn't and don't really know anything about the Arctic. As much as I could say that of myself, I was quite embarrassed. I thought the Arctic was flat, white, and cold, and it is so much more than that. And I came back from the north, and I said, "That's it. I want to share the north with the south, and from the landscape, the people, and the wildlife." So I decided to do a book on the Arctic, and while I was doing it, I was photographing a lot of polar bears. So I decided that I wanted to do a children's book, which of course I had never done before. I wrote it, I photographed it, and I designed it. And one of those things again that you just take a chance and hope that people will buy the product, and just go full force. At the same time, I was working on it at Kaleidoscope, and I was able to release that in 2013, actually, and a year and a bit after I self-published Ben and Nuki. So anyway, those were my 4 books, and all to do with charity, all to give back, all to educate, to raise awareness. and to help any way that I can. I feel blessed that I have that opportunity, and I am honored to be able to do this on a consistent basis, along with doing what I do every day. I am, as Mark mentioned, I work for a number of magazines. I'm a photographer in residence for Canadian Geographic. I write um, uh, I'm a regular contributor to Photo News. I've been on the cover of Outdoor Magazine and Outdoor Photographer. I also last year was able to be a part of a stamp launch. I have three of the bear images in this collection that are mine, as well as the cover and the poster. Gosh, you know, be able to say that you have images on Canadian stamps was definitely a dream come true for me. And you know, it doesn't happen overnight, or it certainly didn't happen overnight for me. It took a long road of believing and dreaming and committing and staying true to my passion. And you know, when you're in school and you're going through it and you have all these dreams, when you graduate, that's what it is. Just, you know, going for it, being happy and really pursuing what it is that you want. But you have to believe in yourself. And I think that was probably one of the hardest parts, because you're new, you're fresh, and you're, you know, not established yet, and you're building through all those blocks, and you know, each of those dots start to connect. And when you can have this happen to you after a significant amount of time in your career, for me this was a highlight for sure, as was a Canadian Mint coin as well, which happened in 2010, 2015. And yeah, again, just a real significant point in my career that I was able to have my image put on a Canadian Mint coin. This is for the 150th anniversary of Canada, and it is actually a $10 coin. And this is how it looks, which is super cool because it is color. And this hangs in your Dare district, and I'm super proud to have my images hanging in Algonquin as well. One of the charities that I love to give back to and to help is CHEO, obviously in Ottawa, the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario. You know, I go there at least a couple of times a year, and I photograph the kids. They use the images in their bus advertisement or in their annual reports, and it just helps them tell their story. And it's an eye opener. And certainly when I had my son and he was very young and I was going back to the hospital to photograph, it was hard hitting. You know, it was so heartbreaking to see these young people going through such awful times in their lives. Most of them that I photographed were in the cancer ward and going through treatment, and it was really heartbreaking and certainly touching, since I had a young one at home. And it made me realize, of course, over and over again, how lucky it is, and I am, to have a healthy child as well. So always happy to give back to CHEO and to meet these young, extraordinary people that are living through a devastating illness, and the smiles, the tenacity, the courage that they have is certainly overpowering for sure. I even created an exhibition about survivors of cancer, and little Miss Molly was one of my models. Unfortunately, she died about a year later, and anyway, it was just the courage she had to come into my studio and to pose for me. And wow, it was a real touching moment for me. I have photographs that hang on the walls at CHEO as well, and through the not the Heart Institute, sorry, the Ottawa Hospital Cancer Center. It's a joy for me to be able to donate my images to hang on their walls, so when patients are walking through, they're able to see the images and maybe take them away from the place that they're at. I get a lot of messages and emails from people saying that they've seen my work in the hospital and how it takes them to a different place when they're going through their difficult times while attending, say, treatment, or even if they're supporting somebody going through. It gives them a hope, and it gives them somewhere to disappear to, other than the unfortunate place that they happen to be in. So again, super happy, proud to support my local institutions, from the hospitals to Algonquin, and it's a way that we can all give back, you know, and it's as much as uh, that you give that you receive, and I never give with any thought of receiving anything in return, but I always do, and whether it's in maybe new business, new friendships, or just in my heart, you know, my heart grows with these opportunities every time, because you're just giving selflessly to a cause that that is important to our community and important to so many individuals living in this community as well. And here's the Dare District in the center, and where you can see some of the images that I donated a couple of years ago as well. So when everything happened in March and we were locked down, I was actually in Africa, and then I ended up in Vancouver Island, or on Vancouver Island, photographing coastal wolves and the herring run. And I came home when everything changed on March 14th, and I'll never forget that day. Like many of us, and you know, many of us left our jobs and our school and what we knew as normal, to a very different world. And when I got home, I had a couple of days recuperation, and then you know, stayed at home, self-isolated. My husband was a fire chief. He's recently retired, so he was going to work, which was very worrisome. And my son was 15, and yeah, we stayed at home. But I just felt this need to go outside and to be in nature and to be a part of the world that I do so much work in. And I needed to find some normalcy, I guess, in my world. And fortunately, we live, you know, in a beautiful backyard that I have trees, and I'm close to parks, and it became my salvation just to be able to go out and photograph. And whether it was birds or you know, geese in the snow, or you know, squirrels, it didn't matter. It was just getting outside, getting into nature, because that's where I felt at peace during this crazy time. So then I decided that I wanted to go downtown and document the streets of Ottawa, and to see what it was like, and obviously safely. But I really wanted to drive the streets. I wanted to document as a visual storyteller what it was like to see the streets of Ottawa during the pandemic. And it was, again, very, very overpowering. So eerie and devastating and still, and so sad, especially as being a business owner, watching these businesses boarded up, the lack of business. How are we going to survive this? How are we going to get through months, or what at that point it was like weeks only? How are we going to survive this as a community, as a world? But you know, in your own backyard, like, how are we going to get through this? So I documented, you know, all of the downtown streets, and I just was overwhelmed. I came around the corner one morning when I was in the Valberg market, and I ran into a friend of mine, Mandy, who was walking her dog. And it was early in the morning, and we just kind of looked at each other, and it was like, hey, hey. It was weird to run into each other and not be able to hug, or, you know, we just looked at each other and started to cry. And she has a store on the Valberg market, and she was living just above it, and was out there just, you know, walking her dog, and just disbelief, you know, her world was taken from under her, like so many. And as we were talking and going through what it was like to be entrepreneurs in the city, I asked her if I could photograph her, and I had no intentions of photographing people. I just went downtown to photograph the streets. And so I sat her down, and she's usually, you know, vibrant, and she's got this beautiful gray hair, and she's tall, and she owns an accessory, so she's usually so vibrant and beautiful. And you know, she was really quite sad with her hat and her mask, and even her dog looked sad. And again, it was just one of those, like, when I went up to the Arctic and I stood on the flow edge, I was an epiphany and said, I just need to do more. So I came home and I told my husband about what I was doing, and my experience with Mandy. And then we were talking about his work, and how they go to calls during the pandemic, and how things had changed for them in the fire department. and first responders. And he was telling me that, of course, the N95s at that point were being saved for the hospitals because they were in short supply. So, the firefighters have to wear their SCBAs to go to medical calls, and fully gowned with double gloves. And I was just blown away at even the thought of it. And I said, "Can I come photograph a firefighter?" So I went down, and Sarah came out and donned her garb when she has to wear into calls now, and I stood her in front of the fire truck and just said, okay, now I've got to continue. I've got to make this into a bigger story because I can't, and that's what my job is. I'm to visual storytell. So I asked people who I knew if I could photograph them at their place of work. I photographed Maurice, who's an ambulance driver. She told me how she had to now go to calls as well, and the changes that they had. And everybody, we all have our stories of COVID and the pandemic and the shutdown, the self-isolation, the quarantine time. This beautiful McKenna is a healthcare worker, and she's also a hoop dancer. And she left her home to go live in the long-term care facility she was working at because her mom was immune compromised. So she actually left her mom to move into the home so she could care for her patients. And she decided at that moment that was the most important, that those patients needed her the most, and she chose to stay there and work long hours and put herself at risk. And she entertained them by her hoop dancing, and just an amazing, really beautiful, talented and committed young woman that was doing her job during the pandemic. Of course, doctors, nurses, everybody putting themselves at risk every day. Imagine like me right now talking to a screen. I mean, imagine, right? And many or some of you may have had this experience when you're faced to a doctor in a pandemic, and this is how they are treating you and coming to talk to you. And I love that Dr. Stoddard put her name on her mask so her patients could see her. But we're so, I photographed the eyes, and somebody I think said that they love to photograph eyes. And that's so critical now. It's everything, all our expressions. It's no longer the smile that we have, but it's the smile in our eyes that will connect us to the people. A friend of mine was making masks. Right from the get-go, she said people need masks. And she spent 16-hour days in her house making masks for people. And it's actually become a social enterprise, and she hired people to help because the demand was overwhelming. And she now has a business called About Face Masks, and she has been committed and fully in tune to making masks and helping people have these beautiful designs and different, not just the black or the hospital mask, but some fun, dynamic ways that we can wear masks. So Julie's an extraordinary woman doing amazing things. And like many of you, a graduate who had their prom dress and shoes and the party and everything, and wasn't able to celebrate with her friends. And I wanted to document a young woman going through that, as well as this sister and brother who lost their mother during the pandemic and weren't able to have a proper funeral for her as well. So they're holding her photo and, absolutely devastated. And I feel so honored and blessed that they actually allowed me to come into their lives. It was only 5 days after losing their mother that they wanted to share their story as well. So every day it was a social media post that I made on Instagram, and it's called Planet Hope Canada. And they had their story as well as what I wrote. And it was really nice. It was a way that I could still maintain my photography and making a difference while doing and being in isolation. And this amazing entrepreneur and restaurateur lost his business on Main Street to fire, and continued to serve the hungry. At the time I photographed him, he had just lost his restaurant, Coconut Lagoon, a couple of days prior, and there he was making meals for people who um, had nothing to eat. It was amazing. Like, it was just every time I photographed somebody, I left with a better understanding of how amazing our community people are, and how many people stepped up to the plate and really worked to make a difference for so many people that were less fortunate, by feeding or clothing or just being and doing things for them. Even Margaret Atwood, anyone Margaret Atwood fans, I had photographed her in Iceland a year prior, and I asked her to be a part of it, and I was thrilled when I got the go ahead that I could use her photo, and a letter that she wrote about living through the pandemic. So that's my Planet Hope series, and yeah, something that I'm super proud of. And I had to kind of take a little bit of a time with it, because I photographed 60 people and I posted every single day. So it took quite a bit out of me, and I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I will return with Planet Hope times two, I think, and maybe make it a little bit more about wildlife, which that name Planet Hope was always supposed to go to a wildlife series. So maybe I will transfer that over and continue it, but with a different direction. And just to finish, I talk about people. I've photographed for people for books, but what I have been concentrating on for the last number of years is conservation, wildlife photography, nature, sharing the stories of places and beautiful wildlife that many people don't know about and have never heard about. And one of the places that I was just before the pandemic hit was I was on the west coast of Vancouver Island, and a tiny little community where there were coastal wolves, and where the herring run takes place as well. And there's no commercial fishing in this area, so it was just full of wildlife. And so many people leave our city to go to other places in this world, which I love to visit as well. But there's so much beauty and hidden nuggets in our own country. I encourage everybody to go out there and find those as well. I've been very fortunate to visit every province and every territory. And I just back, actually, I took a chance and went out to Vancouver Island to see coastal wolves. And the chance of seeing them, I felt very safe in the airplane. I was socially distancing out there, of course, camping and only being with the wildlife. And it was another extraordinary experience being on the beach and seeing these coastal wolves in their habitat. Of course, when I work, I'm not talking too much about photography because just to reach the broader audience, but I have the 800 millimeter there, a 500 millimeter in hand. Of course, keeping yourself dry and keeping your equipment dry is hugely important, especially in the rainforest where it rains a lot. But again, just extraordinary scenery and growth in nature, and a place we really need to protect and we need to preserve, and make sure that our future generations have the opportunity to experience these wonders. I was blown away by the scenery. This was a drone shot from about the herring run, actually, and much is talked about with the salmon run. Not much is talked about with the herring run and the importance of these fish to the ecosystem. And thousands and thousands of millions of eggs are laid, and all the green, the white within the green is the eggs, are the eggs. And so being able to experience this and to see how they attach themselves to the kelp, and how much biodiversity there is, and how we had gray whales, we had all kinds of different species. And one that I had hoped for more than anything was to see the elusive and rare coastal wolf. And there are less than 150 in BC. They are found in Alaska, but that's it. And they feed primarily off of the sea, unlike their inland coastal cousins that have a very different diet. So seeing them is as a rare opportunity, and to hear them howl and to see them howl. This guy probably howled at us for a good minute, and I cried after. It was so overwhelming to have this elusive wolf in front of us, calling out to his pack. I keep saying extraordinary. It was really amazing. This was from just a few days ago, and on the coast of Vancouver Island, and yeah, they're very agile, and the long legs. They run like a marathon a day, and they're quite skinny, quite slim, but they have quite a good food source. So they're thin because they run a marathon every day. Eagles everywhere. I just had actually at the cottage this weekend, two bald eagles in flight, having a mid-air spot, which was amazing in our own world here in the East Coast. It was crazy, or central. Yeah, they had sea lions and these stellar sea lions and California sea lions. It was everywhere you went, every turn you made, there was animals, sea otters, and all kinds of birds, scoters, and yeah, all feeding off of the herring. So I'm now going to end with Project North, and I know Mark spoke a little bit about it. When I was traveling to the Arctic, I was overwhelmed with their love of hockey. Let's just say many Canadians are hockey fans. In the Arctic, I've never seen more hockey fans than there. And I saw them playing with their street hockey stuff, and oh, you know, it was awful. It was not very well. It was just awful. Their equipment. And when I went into the store and I saw that a 2-liter carton of milk sold for $18, all I could imagine is what it would be like for them to buy a sporting equipment or hockey equipment. And so I came back, and again, I just had an idea, and I went to Adventure Canada and I said, hey, I'm coming with you. Can I bring some hockey equipment to the kids in the Arctic, the communities that we're stopping at? And they said yes. So I put a community call out to my friends and business leaders and media people in Ottawa, and we had a drive, and we had so much hockey equipment donated that we actually couldn't get it all onto the ship. And then I had to engage Canadian North, and they came on board, and as did Scotiabank. And you know, the rally, people believed in what I was doing and really wanted to help. And I've been very, very fortunate to have the support of so many people. Jeff Turner is my vice president. He's actually in your college working, and you know, we're all volunteer based, and we have been able to raise over $1 million to send hockey equipment and soccer equipment to, actually it's more than 30 Inuit communities now. So pretty amazing, and has really nothing to do with photography. But for me, it was being able to go into these communities and photograph the people and the landscape and the wildlife. I wanted to leave something behind. I wanted to be able to give back to them. They were so generous with me. So just an idea, and then galvanizing people to help. Diamond Storage gave us a locker and took all our equipment, so we would be able to store while we were trying to figure out what our next delivery was. And Scotiabank came in big, and enough that they asked if they could bring up some hockey legends and the Stanley Cup. Imagine these small Arctic communities that, you know, there's no roads that connect them. Some communities only have 400 people, 900 people. And to be able to bring up hockey legends like Mark Napier and Lanny McDonald and the Stanley Cup, it was extraordinary. Canadian North came in and they flew us from one community to the other. And imagine the kids being able to skate. They built outdoor skating rinks for us, and the communities came out and gave us a parade and fire trucks. And you know, these guys were skating with legends. And you know, some people dropped their knees when they saw the Stanley Cup because they they couldn't believe that that they were witnessing and seeing the Stanley Cup in their own community. This was when we went with Natalie Spooner as well with Lenny McDonald. We brought up the Stanley Cup 4 times to numerous communities. So super, super fun and exciting for sure. Being able to go to the communities and stand in front of them and welcome the greats of hockey and to give equipment as well. There were a number of communities that we would give $25,000 of hockey equipment to. So I guess the whole lesson is this: it doesn't really have anything to do with photography, but it was being able to start a not-for-profit, galvanize people to come on board, all volunteer based, and to do extraordinary things with very little resources. And the opportunities are out there. So if you have an idea and if you want to give back, or if you want to explore, do it and put the call out and see what can happen, because you can make a lot of difference in many different lives. And if we're fortunate enough to do it and to have the time, we always have the time. It's just making the time to do it. It's a wonderful way to make your heart sing, for sure. I have some videos that I don't have time for right now, but I do have some videos on YouTube as well that show some of the gives and some more of the story of Project North. If you're interested in checking it out, you can find me on YouTube at Michelle Valberg, and through my Instagram as well. I invite you to join me there and continue my journey with my wildlife and my conservation work and nature and Planet Hope as well. If I begin that, I need a little bit of time to get my website up and to get a blog going, but it's a never-ending story, right? We always have things to do and to get to that next level. So I really wish all of you a wonderful year ahead. Work hard, dream hard, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I will take, I guess, myself off of screen share, and we'll go from there. So thank you so much for joining my presentation. I have so many stories. It's hard to keep them to short. I'm trying to give you as much information as I can about each one of my projects. But anyway, I hope I didn't skip over too much in it, and it all made sense for you. It's so weird not having that connection with people in front of me, but I hope you're smiling.
They're all smiling.
You have a great, awesome year ahead. I'll go off and stop sharing here.
Michelle, if you could see the chat too, it was really cool during a presentation. Everyone was connecting with each other and talking about the photos or the photography styles. It was really interesting. So feel free to scroll through and just kind of see. It's really neat. And I think you said something very valuable of that want to give back and how to give back. And you've captured that obviously through your photos, but it doesn't necessarily need to be through photography. You can still lend yourself to an organization or have an idea or start something, and then, make a friend who can take pictures and capture it and tell that story or whatever that may look like. But those were unbelievable. So we do have a couple questions, and so I'll just kind of go through them, and then I'll kind of theme them together as well. I know you shared a couple of projects with us today. Was there one that was like the most fulfilling and why? Like they just want to, is there something that's like really, I know that you talked about all of them, but that you're just like, okay, I'm going to be doing this for a long time?
Probably right from the beginning. When I did look beyond, I realized the impact that I could have by just giving a voice to the people who were living. It wasn't a book about death and dying. It was a book about living. So Look Beyond became, something bigger than I ever imagined, because it was giving them a voice of what it was like to live with HIV and AIDS. And back then, in 1993, a lot wasn't known, right, about the disease. And, I photographed grandmothers, and I photographed a couple, a young woman, a child, which dons the cover. So I think that was my, I always gave back a little bit to the charities that were in my community. But when I started a project for myself that I could say that I could put 100% in, and I knew that I was responsible for, and that these people became so important to me and to fulfill that dream, that it became that passion that, you know what, just because somebody says no doesn't mean that it can't happen. And, you know, I've been told no a lot through my career, and that's what spiraled me into, don't tell me no, this is important, now I'm going to do it. And, you know, we're not always given the answers that we're wanting or expecting. So, you know, if you believe in it and you want to commit to it and you're passionate about it, there's no stopping you. So I think it was Look Beyond that really made that difference for me as a photographer and as a storyteller to continue and say, okay, I can do this. You know, people believed in me. So
yeah, I love that you said, don't tell me no. I feel like I saw a couple heads nodding, and it's the truth. No is just the first maybe answer. It's not the end result. So you got to keep going.
Yeah.
There's a question too that kind of plays into that first question. It's, how do you navigate between the balance of amplifying a cause, but then also illustrating your own voice?
Well, you know, when you're if you're donating your time or you're working on your project, and I think that's what I loved about my own projects, my own books, is that it was my own voice, it was my own vision, and people believed in it. And you have to show confidence, and you have to be confident in your own work in order for people to be confident in you. So, you know, I wasn't that far into my career that I ventured out, but I just knew that I wanted to show that work. So, you know, working for yourself is a whole different ballgame. You know, if you're not answering to a high-end commercial client, maybe that, you know, is paying for you to be there. So yeah, it was that combination of just taking hold of a project and doing it myself, and people believing in my work, and it all worked.
And then we have a technical question. Why do you keep the contrast low in black and white photos?
Well, maybe it's the way that it was coming across, but I'm shooting with this new mirrorless Z6 and Z7, or Z6 and 7, and it has a black and white filter that is high contrast. So when I did Planet Hope, I actually was photographing in high contrast. So I'm not sure if it translated on the screen as well. But if you go on Instagram, you can see that it was pretty high contrast that I was shooting in. So back in the film days, both my Look Beyond and Dare to Dream were in film and black and white slide. So it was a whole different process as well. And maybe not as contrasty as what I'm shooting with now. So yeah, it's just style and allowing yourself to change through that as well. And as photographers, if anyone's a photographer or you're an artist or you're a writer or a producer, whatever it is, it's, you know, making sure that you find that time to develop your style, because you want to stand out, and then, you know, develop your style, stay true to it, allow some changes, but really get yourself known with that style. And put yourself out there all the time. You now have the ability to be on social media and in so many phones, you know, coming through, and Facebook and TikTok or whatever it is, whatever medium. So you have the ability to put yourself out there, and that's what you have to do. And one last thing, when we were transitioning from, you know, film to digital, it was really hard to put ourselves out there because it felt like we let go of our ownership of that image because it could be copied. You know, we held our negatives in our slides, and nobody was allowed those unless they paid big bucks. So, you know, now it's just like, put yourself out there as much as you can and get yourself known.
Yeah, it's a great way to brand yourself. You know, it's a free, easy tool, right? Just to showcase your work and what you do. And even when people, I know when I'm looking to hire, I often look at social and just see what people are about and what their style is. So, well, yeah. Thank you very, very much, Michelle. This was awesome. It's still coming in the chat. People are so happy with this. So thank you very much. For everybody, I mean, you have a whole day of free workshops, so stay tuned for more. And if this is the first one and you want to join others, go to the orientation website. Jessica will put it down in the chat as well. This session will be recorded, and we're going to post it next week on the orientation site. So if you want to get more insight to Michelle, or just go back and look at those beautiful photos, you'll see that again on the orientation site. So thank you again, Michelle, so much. And thanks to everybody. And I hope you enjoy your first official day at Algonquin College, and welcome back to the second years, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks.
Thank you.